All right, welcome to the show, everyone. Our special guest today is Tucker Max. Tucker is the #1 New York Times best-selling author of I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell and several other books. He is the CEO and co-founder of Book in a Box, a company that turns book writing and publishing into a service. Tucker was also nominated to the Time Magazine 100 Most Influential list in 2009. Tucker, it's an honor to have you, man.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, so tell us about your background, how you got started as an author.
Oh man, how I got started as an author. I honestly, man, I kind of fell into it after I graduated law school. My friends and I all moved to different cities, and I kind of hated my life and what I was doing, and so I would write emails to my friends to try and like make them laugh and pass the time at a job I hated. And it turned out my emails were pretty funny, and so my friends started forwarding them around to their friends, and then they started getting forwarded like, this is 2001, 2002. This is before MySpace even existed. Forget Facebook or anything. So this is quite a while ago. But back when people used to forward stuff over email. And they started forwarding around. They got kind of big. And then I got fired from my job. And my friends were like, well, you're not very good at what you do, but you're good at writing these stories. You should do this. And so I tried to get published. And no one wanted to publish me, so I put all my stuff online for free, which is like that was mid '02, mid to late '02 actually. That was like when the word blog didn't even really exist, and put my writing up, and it got kind of got big, and then all the publishers came back to me, and then I wrote a book, which became I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, actually, I read your blog like before blogs even existed. I think it must have been like 2003 or so.
Yeah.
And it was like one of the first times I'd ever gone on. It was like AOL. I mean, that's how long ago it was. I was using AOL to get online. I was like a teenager. And I was reading your articles, and it was just like the funniest stuff ever. I was like, man, this is like better than, books I've ever seen in the bookstore. Like it's so well edited, it was so well done. And so I think you were one of the first guys that's actually, gone out there and published stuff online of that quality. And
Yeah.
and that's really cool. So that was kind of was the start of your career. So where did you go from there?
So I mean, after that, man, it was like I kind of dove into the publishing, the writing and publishing world. It was like I became a writer at that point. I was selling books, so that's really kind of the definition of a writer. Is you're getting paid for your writing. And I wrote. Well, I did a movie actually. Before I did any of my other books, I did a beer. I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell was turned into a movie. And then I did Assholes Finish First and Hilarity Ensues and Sloppy Seconds. All those books came out like '09 to 2012. And once I kind of, at some point, like my books were, about all the funny, ridiculous, stupid stuff I did in my 20s. Once I was kind of long out of my 20s, I had no more stories left. Eventually, you just get tired of drinking and hooking up and being an idiot. And so I kind of retired from satire, which it was the genre that the New York Times said I guess I invented. I don't know. But then I started, I did a few other things. I angel invested. I helped friends start businesses, and I helped other authors launch their books. And then I kind of stumbled into the company I have now, Book in a Box, about a year and a half ago. And that and my family are what I do full time now.
That's awesome. I want to take a real quick step back. You mentioned, basically coming out with books, and essentially you took kind of the stories from your blog and turned those into books. And I know
Right.
a lot of people out there are saying, you can just copy and paste your blog articles and your book is done. Is that kind of how it was for you? Was it just a real simple, quick process, or what was that process actually look like?
Yeah, it was for me a lot because I wrote short stories. So I'd do a short story, I'd finish it, it would be a sort of a blog post, and then and my book was just a collection of short stories. Most people, when they try and turn a blog into a book, it doesn't work because a book tends to be or a nonfiction book is sort of one singular thought that is kind of fully explored and fleshed out. And a blog, for most people, is a lot of different things and ideas all kind of put together. So there are some people who you can just turn your blog into a book, but not many, dude. I happened to be one of the people where it worked. And I didn't put everything on my blog because I had stories on my blog that were kind of mediocre. And so I kept those out of the book. And then the book was only really the best. My books are really my best stories. like the funniest, best ones that I wrote. But no, most people should not just convert a blog into a book.
Gotcha. So one of the things that you've done in your career that's really unique, like you're the only person I've heard of who's actually, taken a self-published book and actually gotten massive retail distribution, and not just like in your local Barnes and Nobles, but like, all over the world. So how did you actually do that? Can you walk people through that process? And is that possible for other people to do?
There's a couple ways to do that. So I've sold 3 million books, and across all my 4 or 5 books now. So the very first book I did, I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell, was not self-published. I had a small publisher, Kensington Press, which they do like Harlequin romance novels in my book. So they got me into bookstores to begin with. But that was 2006. That was really before self-publishing as we understand it took off. Even 10 years ago, it was a totally different world. And for my second book, I signed a normal publishing deal with Simon & Schuster. And then that was For Assholes Finish First. And so those 2 books did really well, sort of the normal way. And then when it came time for me to do my 3rd and 4th book, I thought, by that point, I'd had both my books have been on the New York Times bestseller list for years. So I was like, hold on a minute. I don't need a publisher anymore. Like, all publishers do really are things that everything a publisher does, I can do. I can hire my own editors. I can hire my own book cover designer. I can hire my own layout person. I already do all my own marketing. I already have my own email list. I have my own audience because I was forced to put a blog up early before blogs even existed. So because ironically, publishers wouldn't publish me, right? So I already had a direct line to my own audience. And a lot of people understand this now, but even in 08, 09, which is when I really started doing this, this was a kind of a new idea. And so what I did was I went actually to Simon & Schuster, and I said, I don't want a book deal. I want a publishing company deal. Like, you're going to treat me the way that you treat like Harvard University Press. And I'm going to use your printers and your trucks and your warehouses and your salespeople to get into bookstores, and you're going to handle all that stuff like you normally do. But I'm going to now, instead of you paying me 15% of what the book makes, I now get 50%. Actually, I get 89% because I'm the publisher and you're just the distributor. Because when you do a book, there's kind of 2 different levels. If you're the writer, there's the publisher and then there's the distributor. And so most people only deal with publishers and not distributors. What I did was just cut the publisher out of the process. I became my own publisher, and then I used Simon & Schuster as a distributor. Most people who self-publish do a version of that, but they only go to Amazon or to iBooks because Simon & Schuster or HarperCollins or all the major distributors won't deal with most individual people. The way you get around that, the honest to God answer is you've got to sell books. If you sell a lot of books, if you start as just a normal self-published author and you sell a lot of books, fiction or nonfiction, then it's really easy to go to a publisher and say, hey, I've sold 50, 100,000 copies on Amazon. Obviously, I have a big audience. If you rep my book, you can be my distributor to B&N and Target and Costco and everyone else. And they'll take anywhere from 11 to 20% as a distribution fee. And then you get to actually keep everything else, which is pretty great. It's pretty much inverting the sort of profit margin. So I ended up netting about 3 times what I made before per copy. But it was a lot more work for me too, though.
Gotcha. So what extra work actually was involved in that, just besides just negotiating the deal?
So when you're a publisher, it's not that different from self-publishing. So from conventional self-publishing, I really was self-publishing, except I just owned a publishing company instead of just using like CreateSpace, right? So what I did, so let's see, I hired, I actually paid my editor, my old editor at Simon & Schuster, I paid him some money. He edited my book. Then I paid for my cover design, which ironically I'd already done on the book before because I hated my publisher's cover design. Then I had to hire an interior design firm. So like the layout of a book, it's a problem with most self-published books is they look really amateur and really ghetto and really stupid. And so you can't really do that if you want a professional book. So I hired an interior design firm to lay everything out and make it look both on paper and on ebook really, really good. And then what else is there? You know, you have to buy your ISBN, and which is really simple. And there's a few other really little things that you have to do. But essentially, you have to then become your own publishing company. So I also negotiated the deal with Simon and Schuster. I had to go to the sales rep meeting and kind of pitch the book and explain it. We had to write all the sort of book description, all the copy, all that kind of stuff. Had to do promotional photos, sort of all the marketing stuff that a publisher is supposed to do, but they don't really do a good job of. We did all that. I did all the marketing already, so I hired a PR firm plus all my own ability. Not a PR firm, but I hired sort of a friend of mine who does marketing, and that I had actually trained. He and I did all the marketing. So, I mean, it was just everything a publisher does. Or even if they do a bad job, you have to do that yourself.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And so when you negotiated that deal, I mean, did you have an attorney in the room? Did you have an agent? Or was it just you?
Man, I'm just that much of a baller. It was just me. I definitely had an attorney look over the contract. So what I got it was pretty crazy, man. At Simon, we were at Simon & Schuster, and like, it was almost like out of a movie. The original meeting was with the head of Gallery, which is an imprint there, who had published my last book, and my editor, and then someone else. And I was like, look, I had emailed them and told them like what I wanted to do, and then we had a meeting, and they were like, I kind of explained it to them, and they said, okay, like we kicked this upstairs to the C-level executives, the CFO and the COO or somebody else, the chief publishing officer or whatever, and they were like, they love this idea and they want to come talk to you. And I was like, okay, cool. And then they kind of asked me, they were like, hey man, can we be at this meeting? And I was like, yeah, of course. I just assumed you would be. Why are you asking me? They're like, oh, no. We've actually never been to a C-level meeting with publishers, like with a distribution C-level meeting. We have no idea how these go. We only deal with authors. And so I was like, yeah, sure, hang out, no problem. So the like 3 of the C-level execs came in, and we negotiated. They weren't like the deep deal points, but we negotiated what the let's see, what are the deal terms? What the distribution fee is. So what does Simon & Schuster take as a percentage of each book sold as their fee? What the pass-through costs are. So like, there's a price to put a book on a truck. There's a price to, take refunds, all those sorts of things from book sellers. So basically, instead of negotiating each of those things piece by piece, I got them to agree to give me most favored nation status. So what I did was I had them basically admit to me what the best terms they gave to their other distribution clients, like Harvard University Press or whoever it was. And I got all the best terms. So, which just made negotiation really easy. And so by doing that, there wasn't much else to talk about. A few more things, man, like that were small deal terms. I don't even remember. They brought them up. They were small things. And then we agreed in principle in the room. I had them send the contract to me, and then I hired an outside publishing attorney who negotiated tons of these deals before, distribution deals. I had him look it over, and he redlined it and gave a bunch of notes, and then I had him work through me with them. So that way I didn't pretend like I knew what I was talking about with individual contract points. And then I paid him hourly. He was $300-400 an hour. It probably cost me $2,000, $2 to $4 grand for him. And we got the deal done. And then I ended up having my own publishing company with distribution through Simon & Schuster.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So all in, can you like estimate what the expenses were to get the deal done and to get the books in bookstores and deals, refunds, and all that?
Yeah. So It was, if you don't count printing of books, because some people would print small amounts or big amounts. I got the best, the deal. So part of my deal with Simon & Schuster, they don't actually have a printer. They use a printing company. I forget who they use, Macmillan or somebody like that. I got them to flow through their best deal to me. And I feel like I paid like $1.75 a copy for hardcover. But that's at scale because I was printing, I don't know, God knows, 50,000 books or something like that. So that was so $1.75 a copy. Then let's see, cover editing. It could have been more than $50,000 to $75,000 upfront cost, plus book printing. So call it 100 to 150 grand, and I ended up selling 300-ish thousand copies hardcover, and I made gross revenue on that would be $12. Net revenue is 8-ish. So actually, yeah, could call it 7 with distribution fees. So 7 times 3, 2.1 million, minus actually with more printing, 200 grand. So that's what I ended up doing. Yeah.
That sounds like a pretty sweet deal. So can you give some insight then into like why would a publisher even look at a deal like why would they go from like taking 85% of the revenue to 20%?
It's an excellent question. Here's why. Because I am a big author who sold a lot of copies. So if Simon & Schuster wanted to keep me as an author, they were going to have to pay a $2 million advance, right? Because I had already gotten a $2 million, and I probably could have negotiated more from a different publisher. And so an advance is what a normal author gets. It's essentially like a loan you never have to pay back. It's advance against royalties. If you never sell enough books to cover that money, you don't ever have to pay it back. If you do, then you just get royalties beyond that advance, right? So they were gonna, they were gonna pay me $2 million up front, or they could pay me nothing up front. So $2 million up front with all the risk of my book not selling a lot, or pay me nothing up front and they get the guarantee of 11% of net receipts. So they still made pretty solid money on the book, and it was no risk for them. So for the bean counters, it was like the easiest decision ever. It's all upside, no risk for them. That's why they did it. And they were going to lose me anyway, right? Because they probably weren't going to match the $2 million. They were going to come at me with an offer of like 1.2, 1.5 million, something like that. So they're like, we can get nothing, or we can make risk-free money.
Makes sense. So have there been other people like you doing deals like that? Because I really haven't heard much about it.
Yeah. So before me, I only found, I'm the first author I had ever heard of to do that. So I thought I invented that. Turns out that like 20 years ago, the Rich Dad Poor Dad guy, Robert Kiyosaki, actually did that after his first book, unfortunately, which was his big one. So because of my deal, I ended up helping a bunch of other people get the same deal or something similar. So the big one you probably heard of is Hugh Howey, who wrote Wool. He's a pretty famous novelist. He self-published it, made a bunch of money up front. And then, yeah, so Hugh is a good friend of mine, and I helped him and his agent walk through how to do this. And they ended up getting a very similar deal from Simon. And then at this point, I think there's 5 or 6 other authors who've done this. The thing is, you can't do this unless you've already sold a lot of books. Because if you're just a new author, the reason Simon & Schuster won't do this is because B&N won't carry your books. They won't care. So it's got to be someone where they know they're going to make a lot of money. Otherwise, it's not worth their time.
Gotcha. So what would you say is kind of like that base sales figure that you would need to get a publisher interested in a deal like this?
I can't imagine for less than 100,000 copies sold. And that's self-published, and that's 100,000 and rising. you know, and the more you've sold, the better. It just, yeah, like, and then it kind of depends on what kind of deal you're looking for and how you're going to run that.
Gotcha. And is there any like ongoing work that you have since you are the publisher for the book? Like, do you have to constantly fill orders and stuff like that, or not really?
No, you can automate most of that. It's pretty simple. Like Simon & Schuster does almost all the work. I have to order more books from the printer and stuff like that. I have to deal with the printer separately. There's a few things that are annoying, but I mean, it's like an hour or two of admin work a month at this point.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. Some really good information. I think that's inspiring to see that there's definitely other options out there for people.
Of course, dude. Yeah, happy to help.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, Book in a Box and your new company you started.
Right. So it's pretty cool. I was at this entrepreneur dinner, and this woman comes up to me and she says, Tucker, I know you've written these books and you have this publishing company. She's like, but I'm an entrepreneur. She's in retail or something totally different. She's like, people have been asking me to write a book for 10 years about what I know. I just don't have time. I'm too busy. How can I get this book out of my head? And so I kind of like teased her and made fun of her about like, the only way to write a book is to write it. But she kind of called me out. She's like, look, if you're an entrepreneur, you should help me solve my problems and not lecture me about hard work. And I was like, all right. So I kind of got obsessed with this idea. How do I get her idea out of her head and into a book without her having to touch a keyboard, right? And I didn't think it was possible. And then I got together with my friend Zach, and we kind of brainstormed and spitballed this idea where maybe we can interview her to structure her book and outline it, and then use that outline as a way to interview her and get all of her knowledge out of her head, record that, transcribe it, and then get that transcription, edit the transcription into book prose, and then let's see if that works. I didn't think it was going to work. And we did it, and it ended up working great. We ended up doing an amazing book. And so she, in the meantime, recommended us to a bunch of her friends who were entrepreneurs, and we signed them. And then I did a podcast, not totally different than this one. It was Lewis Howes' School of Greatness podcast. And I talked about this just randomly, like for 10, 20 minutes over the course of an hour podcast. And Lewis ended up, from off that podcast, we ended up signing like $200,000 worth of clients. And we weren't really even offering this as like a service or a company. We just had so many people coming to us asking to do this. And so we ended up creating, we called it Book in a Box because we couldn't think of any other name for it on the podcast. Actually, Lewis was like, what do you call it? And I'm like, I don't know, Book in a Box. And so that became the company name. And that was about 18, 19 months ago. Since then, we've done about 250 books. And with our process, we've made $4 or $5 million. It's been pretty amazing. The process has really gotten good, and it works amazing, dude. If you like writing, it's not a good process for you. But most people who have a great book in their head either don't have the time or don't have the desire to sit down and spend 1,000 hours at a computer typing it all out. So what we do is we solve that problem for them. We turn writing and publishing into a service. And so we do all of it. We do writing, and then we do everything I just talked about in publishing. Book cover, interior design, distribution. We do everything.
Awesome. So for distribution, are you doing the same distribution that you were getting for your books?
So we don't actually, no, because for most books, like I said, these are relatively unknown authors, and they're only going to sell maybe 5, 10, 15, maybe 20,000 copies. So BNN is just not that interested in that. We have put 2 authors into BNN through my distribution deal with Simon & Schuster. But most of our authors, I don't want to say they don't care about selling books. They'd like to sell books. What they really care about is using, like if you're an entrepreneur or an executive or a CEO, Fortune 500 CEO, we've got a couple of those who've come through. What a book is for you is like a business card. It's a way to show the world what you know, to share what you know, to get clients, maybe to get people to want to work for you or work with you, or any number of things, to get speaking gigs, things like that. And so for those people, they don't really care so much about being in Barnes & Noble. They care about having a great book that looks really well that they can either give away to people or hand out, or people can buy on Amazon and see, or whatever. That's far more important. Dude, the reality is now, for the vast majority of books, I feel like it's somewhere between 25 and 30% of the book market is, I think it might even be a little bit less, is in-store sales now. Like the vast, vast majority is online, whether it's ebook or just ordering the hard copy online. Most people just don't go to bookstores anymore.
Gotcha. So when you're talking about like basic distribution for your clients, then can you walk us through kind of what formats you guys are publishing and where you distribute them?
So our service, we do this as a service, and we don't take any ownership. Like the author owns the rights and royalties. So we do, for the basic service, which is 20 grand, we publish it in ebook and paperback. And then the sort of expanded service that includes audiobook and hardcover and other stuff is 50 grand. We can do any of those things, though. We can do the most amazing hardcovers you've ever seen, or we can do long, amazing produced audiobooks. We can do pretty much anything. It just kind of depends on what you want, and whatever distribution you want, we can do. We are a total full service publishing company. The basic distribution, though, is Amazon, iBooks. I think we actually just stopped doing Nook because I feel like BNN just stopped supporting Nook. Kobo, maybe. Just all the major ebook and paperback platforms.
Awesome. And then what about marketing and promotion? Like, everything you learned over the past decade in the industry, what are some of the things today that, especially new authors who are unknown, do to really get more sales?
So what are the things we do for our clients, or what are things authors can do?
Just authors in general, yeah, or maybe what you do for clients.
They're a little bit different. So actually, this is what we do for our clients for marketing. Actually, starts at the very beginning. They don't really realize it, but it's our job to nail this stuff. It's not their job. Here's the problem that almost all authors have with book marketing, is that an author will think up an idea. Okay, I want to write a book. Here's my idea. And then they'll go write that book, and then it's finished. And then they'll go say, okay, how do I market this? And the huge, vast majority of the time, if they wrote the book first, before thinking about marketing, the book is not remotely marketable. It's not necessarily a bad book. It's just they've made a bunch of decisions that have limited how they can market it, right? So what we do with our clients, and what I recommend all authors do, is you need to ask yourself 3 questions. Before you write one goddamn word in your book, you need to ask and answer these questions, because they will determine all of your marketing strategies. The first one is, what result do you want from this book? So you need to be very clear exactly what result you're trying to get, not what you hope to get, like the result that you must get to make this book a success, right? Because everyone wants to sell a bunch of copies and be rich and famous and whatever. That would be super nice, but it's not crucial for the book to be a success to do that. So for our authors, a lot of them are like, they want to be a professional speaker, or they want to have more status and authority in their field, or whatever. So we kind of narrow it down. Then the second thing is, what audience do you have to reach in order to get that result? So if you want to keynote tech conferences, for example, then the audience you have to reach are people who go to tech conferences and people who book speakers for tech conferences. That's your only audience. If you want clients for your consulting business, then your audience are potential clients for your consulting business, the type of people that you want, that would want to hire you for your knowledge and wisdom. That's your only audience. Then the third question you have to answer is, what do I know that's interesting and valuable to that audience? Because if you answer that, then you'll write a book that has an audience already, right? And if you do that, marketing is really, really easy. If you write a book that has a very clearly defined audience and provides a very clear benefit or solves an obvious problem for them, marketing is simple, because all you have to do is get your book in front of people who have that problem or want that benefit. Simple. Most people don't start with the reader in mind. They start with themselves in mind. So if you've started with the reader in mind, then everything about marketing is, I just need to put my book in front of the right people because they already want this. Whereas if you decide, I'm going to write a book about how brilliant I am, then you have to decide, okay, how the hell do I convince people that they care about how brilliant I am? Good luck, dude. You know? I mean, it's really hard.
Yeah, totally. So then, that makes a lot of sense, definitely honing in on your audience, getting really clear on that. But, let's say someone's already dialed in with that. They have their audience. They know exactly who it is. What are some of the ways that you are reaching your audience or having clients reach their audience, especially like online?
All right. So podcasts obviously work great. Like podcasts are a huge medium now. There's a bunch of people listening to them. So if, like right now, I have a company that will, for a service, will turn people's ideas into books. And our perfect clients for us are anyone who has a book idea or an idea for a book that wants to turn it into a book that can use that book to get something else that's valuable to them, like clients or authority or speaking gigs or things like that. So I do 2 to 3 podcasts a week that are geared toward entrepreneurs or C-level executives or coaches or consultants or any sort of professionals, lawyers, financial advisors, people for whom books are really valuable for them in their business. It's really simple. It's easy for me. And all I have to do, I don't even talk about myself. I just talk, really, for the most part, we just talk about why books can help, or how to use books, and then how to do it. A lot of podcasts, I teach my process. I talk through it, and people who want to do it themselves, no problem. They can. People whose time is very valuable, hire us, right? So if you've nailed your audience, you need to just go find them and get in front of them. Do it on podcasts, an easy way. Another way is guest posting on blogs or media outlets that are geared to your audience. So many people want to I want to write for Entrepreneur. I want to write for Inc. I want to write for Forbes. Those are such broad audiences, though. It's really hard to do something that's interesting to that entire audience. But if you are the expert on how lawyers can use SEO, then you should be writing on not SEO blogs, on lawyer blogs, right? So that's why a lot of times we tell our authors, we coach our authors, we get them to narrow down on a deep niche, because a deep niche is much, much easier to market than a broad niche, which is what most people try and do, because they think they have to go broad to sell a lot of books, because that's the only way that a broad audience is going to care, right? But if you're niche, then it's really easy to get in front of a niche audience, because there's not a lot of things that are written for niche audiences. And there aren't a lot of people who are deep, honest to God experts in niches. Does that make
Absolutely.
sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's really easy, to go to, like a blog, like you said, for lawyers, rather than trying to write on a blog, like Entrepreneur or Forbes, something like that. And like you said, you're going to connect with your real audience that way, people who actually care. Like 100% of people reading that are actually going to care about it, because it's going to be actually relevant to them, rather than like 1% of the people who read Forbes are actually lawyers. That's
why the first question we ask is, what result are you trying to get? Because once we understand that, we're able to craft the entire strategy. It's actually, we call it book positioning, but it's actually a marketing strategy. If you know your results, know who you have to reach to get your result, and then know what you have to give them to get them to do what you want. It's a really, really simple thing. People make marketing so hard, and it's actually not. The reason marketing is hard for a lot of people is because they're trying to sell bullshit. Because what they have to offer is nonsense, and no one wants it, so they have to figure out ways to trick people. That is hard to do, and it's getting harder and harder and harder. But I mean, I'll give you an example. Our company, we've grown so fast because we're solving such a clear problem that so many people have, and we're solving it really well. So for us, all I have to do is just go in front of people who have our problem or want our service and talk about it, and we get floods of clients.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Awesome. Well, Tucker, you shared some awesome stuff with us today. I really appreciate it. And tell us more about, Book in a Box, and where people can find out more about what you're doing.
Yeah, just bookinabox.com. Pretty simple. The whole thing's explained on the page, and if anyone's interested, you just fill out the form. We're happy to talk to you. And then we also actually have a book, too, that explains our whole process. If anyone wants to, you don't need to pay us to learn how to do this. You can do it yourself if you don't have much money. you can actually go to bookinabox.com/book and enter your email, and we'll send you the book's on Amazon too. If you want to pay $5 for it, you can, or you can just get it free at our site.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that awesome resource with us, Tucker. Really appreciate it, man.
Of course, man. Happy to help.
All right. Thanks, man. Have a great day.
Talk to you later.